Okay, we are live. Today is Tuesday, the 28th, March 2023. Our subject tonight is pastured poultry in 2023 and the bird flu. I thought that people would enjoy this conversation. So I think I'm going to enjoy it. Today, Tuesday, I was the milk guy, so it was my turn to milk. We kind of have it split up. I milk one day, and the three kids all take 2 days. So today was my day, and I had some maintenance to perform on our compressor. I've been struggling with this compressor for a while. It's supposed to be at 14 millibars of vacuum pressure, I think. All right. I was just trying to educate myself on how this really works. I know it has a vacuum gauge on it, but it's not pounds. It's millibars, right? I hope someone on here knows better than I do, because I'm going to ask you some questions on this. And ours is struggling to make 8. And I borrowed one from Joe Higgins, and his made 14 all day long, and the milking machine worked really good. And but the motor on that one pooched about a month ago, so we had to go back to our old one. And I got to do something about it, and so I pulled it down from where it's mounted in the milking parlor. And all right, Keith is with us, Ing is with us, and Belva's with us. And I put it on the back of the truck, the service truck, where my tools are. I wonder if Brian's going to be with us today. I got the title in the mail the other day. I forgot to tell you that I got it, but I got it. So right on, man. Thanks. And I worked on the stupid thing for about half the day. I did everything I could think of, but it's still only getting up to 10, and I need 14. So I came in the house and I wanted to just check and see if anybody on YouTube knew anything about that. And come to find out, I can buy a whole new pump, for a really good one for $150, and one from Harbor Freight from about $60. So now I'm trying to figure out how does CFM, cubic feet per minute, equate to millibars, right? So I'm going to have to do some more research after. But if anybody out there knows, if anybody's gone through the milking equipment thing, you'd think I would know at this time. Our milking business is going really good. I think we have 35 customers now, which is pretty nice per week. We're taking care of 35 people. So that's pretty nice. And we just bought another cow off of some neighbors, friends of our boys. She's not in milk, but she's going to be freshening in May. So, yeah, raw milk. Oh, yeah. Don't tell me raw milk's illegal now. Or you're going to tell me it's illegal in your state, I bet. That's usually how that works. I wish I could get raw milk, but it's illegal here in Kentucky. OG Benavides. It ain't. It ain't, huh? All right, excuse me. I got to blow my nose a little bit. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a cold. Well, tonight's show is going to be pastured poultry in 2023 and the bird flu, right? And tonight's show is brought to you by Tribe Plus, all things chicken, chicken tractor video courses, poultry processing, June 11th, pastured poultry and chicken processing class. That's going to be right here at Baker's Green Acres. Last year, we had 24 people in the class. Had a really good time too. It was really fun. My only complaint was that it was only a 1-day class, where a lot of our hog processing class people are here for 3 days, and you get people visiting and they're all kind of into this whole farming thing and get to hang out. But the pasture poultry class, they're here and then they're gone. All right, Dave and Sonya's with us, and Sonya in Michigan is with us. I wonder if they're the same people. Howdy to all, the middle of the thumb. Oh, how? That's Sonya lives in the middle of the thumb, so they live over here, and I live over here. All right, so it's a Michigan thing, right? Kind of funny. It makes perfect sense to people from Michigan. Oh, I live in the thumb. I live in the ring finger. I live in the pointer finger, at the tip of the pointer finger. Oh, I live in the middle finger. But people outside of Michigan, it doesn't. They're like, what? You live in the thumb? What do you mean the thumb? I live in the palm. I live in the mitt. Excuse me. All right, so we're going to talk about pastured poultry because it's that time of year. And a lot of people have been coming to the Anyone Can Farm tribe for guidance. And I think that it's fitting that we're north of Detroit. So you're right you're right there. Nathaniel Hawthorne. I think it's fitting that we talk about this because in the homesteading business, it seems as though the gateway to homesteading livestock really is poultry, whether it's layer chickens or pastured poultry, which pastured poultry usually denotes broiler chickens or meat chickens, right? Where layers are usually not pastured, but they can be. They can be. You can use a chicken tractor system to move your layers around, and there's quite a bit of benefits to that, and I want to talk about that tonight. But in pastured poultry, which we've been doing now for, this is our 19th year. 19th year. How about that? We're gonna Next year, we'll have been at this farm for 20 years, right? That's as long as I was in the Air Force, right? So I'd be out 20, and I was in 20. I like it better out than in at this point. I couldn't say that from the beginning. At the beginning, I got out, and it's weird out here. I want to go back, but now I'm getting used to it, and it's okay. Pastured poultry is a great place to start if you want to get into livestock on the homestead. Your return is quite quick. So let's say that you're a family of 4. 1 chicken a week should do it. 52 chickens, pretty easy to do, right? And the facets of that operation are brooding. So when you get young chicks, day-old chicks, I think we pay about $1.80 for them. I think maybe it's over that now. I'm not sure. We get a lot of them at a time, though. You have to brood them, so that means you got to keep them someplace warm until they're ready to go outside in chicken tractors. Chicken tractors sometimes are referred to as pens or shelters, but what it basically is it's the way we build them 10 feet wide and 12 feet long, and they have no floor in them. So I probably will be going to the blackboard I'm going to use aqua today. Let's see if I can draw this so it makes sense to you. This is going to be a side view. I'll try to do a little dimensional drawing here. This is just where I tested my pen, so you can disregard that. Okay. That's pretty good. We make them 2 feet high and 10 feet wide. And 12 feet long. So that gives us about 120 weird angle to write on. 120 square feet. See that? Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. Now ours have a slightly different design than that. And let's just say I won't even go into what I build them out of at this point, but there is no floor in this. And we're going to have something on the top here to shade the birds, right? And to keep anything from jumping in there, like a dog or a raccoon or a mountain lion or something like that would like to come and eat your chickens. So, let's talk about brooding. And I want to talk about the way that I brood. I have a brooder, and I worked on it yesterday for a while. It's a little house. And the house is 10 by 8. And it sits on skids, 6 by 6 skids, right? A little dimensional drawing on this. All right. And the skid like that. But basically what this is I've got a heater in here, a little hover heater. You're just going to have to use your mind's eye on this. It's commercially made. It's got a thermostat on it. It hangs, and it's propane. And it hangs on the inside there. And when we get our chicks, we're usually getting them 300 at a time or 400 at a time. Depends on how many tractors we're going to run that time. And this little house is heated and insulated. And I can put the chicks in there relatively early. So they've been in there now 2 weeks. So I guess we got them the second week in March. That would probably make sense. We put a lot of bedding down on the floor in there. I use wood chips or straw, but it's got to be really dry because the ground will pull the heat right out of the little baby chicks. And then we have a propane source. I use 100-pounders. And the way I do it now is I have 2 of them. And the reason I do that is because I'm into redundancy, right? If one of them runs out, I want to have another one right there. It's still getting down to 25 degrees at night here, and maybe even lower, maybe 20 degrees. So it's cold enough where if the heater went out, even the birds that are 2 weeks old, they have a tendency to want to get on top of each other and pile. And you can have a huge mess. So one of the last things I do at night is I go out and I just grab that tank and I rock it back and forth just to make sure that I've got enough fuel in there. And if I don't, I switch it over to the other one because I want to make sure I'm in good shape, right? So with this hover heater, by the way, these ones, If you're interested in the ones that I use, I got them from Stromberg's like 10 years ago. I have 3 of them. I'm really only using one. I think one of them is, yeah, one of them went down the road. So no, I have 2. One of them's brand new, and the other one I'm using right now. I always want to have a backup because let's say that this one was to go down, this hover, I would be in really tough shape, really tough shape. So the other one is hanging up in the butcher shop. It's, you know, it's high and dry. I can look at it to make sure that it's in good shape. I can even light it if I want to. I hung it in there because I thought if we ever needed heat in there for some reason, I could just turn it on because it does generate enough heat. The birds will be in here this time of the year. They'll be in there at least 4 weeks, maybe even 5 weeks, and they'll only be out on the field for about 3 weeks, right? Here in northern Michigan, it's cold still. Our springs are pretty cool. Midsummer, when it's hot out, we won't even be using these. The pilot light will be keeping that just warm enough in there. And I have a skylight on here that I built on there. So a lot of sunlight gets through, and we use very little propane in the summer. In the summertime, I'll only have the baby chicks will be in the brooder for about 2 weeks, and then out they go. The idea with this brooder, and I would really like people to do this, is there's no floor in this brooder. So one of the things that you have to consider with pastured poultry to give them a really good start going out on the field is, you know, you don't want them to get sick. So I was going to use the word biosecurity. All right. So, all right, biosecurity. So let's say I had a floor in here and I do a load of chicks. They're in there 3 weeks and I'm putting them out on the field. Do I really want to put brand new baby chicks in there on top of that old bedding? The answer is no, because if there is a problem, I would be infecting my next load of chicks. Now, is there a problem? We don't have problems anymore, and it's because of this brooder having no floor in it. So when I'm done with this load of chicks, I'll just hook onto it. I'll put a chain on here. I'll pick it up just a little bit, the front of the tractor, just a couple inches off the ground so it won't dig in because I don't want to tear up wherever it is. And I'll just move it. I'll just skid it along. I can skid it with my Jeep. I can skid it with the tractor. If we had to, probably 2 or 3 people could skid it. They'd be working, but they could do that. And that's really nice to know. I mean, you don't skid it with the chicks in there because they'll get scared and they'll go to the back of the brooder, and then you would run the risk of running them over. It's only when you've taken them out and you got them out into the chicken tractors that you can do that. Now, let's just talk this chicken tractor. This is we call this an 80, 120 square feet, fits 80 birds nicely. Any more than that, and it seems like they're too close and they have a tendency to want to peck each other. Okay? Not all the time, but sometimes. Any less than that, and they have a tendency to mob up around the feeder. I don't know why. So we just keep about 80 in there, and then they seem to do fine. They'll come out to the perimeter, the extremities of the chicken tractor, and they seem to do okay. Now, our chicken tractors are kind of, I am a connoisseur of chicken tractors, and I actually have a roof on there, and there is a tarp that we stretch down over 75% of the tractor, and then this is open in front here. except for a wire cover that we can put over it. And what that does is that keeps the chickens from jumping out, right? Because this is only 2 feet. The white birds are not big time jumpers, but the Freedom Rangers, that's that kind of up and come dark meated bird. They're jumpers. They they like to jump and they can jump. And once they jump up on here and they're out, then every night you got to be collecting up 10 or 20 of them and putting them back in. And you really don't want to do that. What the idea of this whole operation is to create a meat source with as little effort going into it as possible. And that's something for us, like we're production farmers. So if I spent my whole day on pastured poultry, then who's going to milk the cows? Who's going to feed the cows? Who's going to move the cows? Who's going to do the butchering? Who's going, there's so many things that we have to do. Who's going to feed the pigs? There's so many things that we have to do in the course of a day that we want to be able to operate. I have 5 of these right now. I have 5. At one time, we had 30. And back then, we were working with a distributor, and we were producing a lot of pastured poultry. And, live and learn. It didn't make a lot of sense to do that. And there's a lot of reasons why. But when we got done with that distributor, he was making as much off of our poultry as we were. And for doing nothing more than warehousing it and then doling it out to their customer base. And I don't recommend doing that for a couple reasons. It's not like pastured poultry that there is a ton of profit in it. However, there is, by our numbers and by numbers of some other pasture poultry producers like Joel Salatin, I trust his numbers. I mean, the guy works at it a lot, and he figures about $9 is your profit after you've paid everything out that you need to, and that's your labor and everything. So it's not bad. That's not bad. Let's say you were to do 1,000 of them a year. It's not a bad facet. Really not a bad facet. In homesteading, we're not monocrop farmers. We don't do a ton of one thing. I wouldn't want to do a ton of one thing. Let's see, how many chickens would I have to raise at $9 to make, let's say, 60,000 per year, which I'm just pulling that number. The economy on the homestead is a lot different than, let's say, that we lived in town. But let's just, for the fun of it, let's just see that. 60,000 divided by $9 in profit. That's 6,666. So that's a kind of a weird number, isn't it? Doable? Yeah, definitely doable. In pastured poultry, let's see how many chicken tractors we'd have to be running. So we'll divide that by 80. And that's going to give us 83 chicken tractors. But wait a minute, could that be right? All right, so 6,000 divided by 80 equals 75 chicken tractors. But we're going to reload chicken tractors 3 times in the summer here. We could reload them 4 times. So let's say we've got, our number is 75 chicken tractors, and let's say we're going to divide that by 4. That would be 18 chicken tractors reloaded 4 times. That would give us 6,000 birds. 6,666, 7,000, like Andy said. Okay, that's doable. That's doable. You're going to be working at it, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I won't be. I can tell you that because I want to be also raising beef, and I want to be raising pigs, and still running our butchering operation. So I don't want to extend out that far. I think that where I'd like to be is about 8 chicken tractors. So for every one of these, you can figure if you reload, and I'm only going to reload 3 times here. Why? Because we get to the end of the season, and then it's pig butchering season. So I go right into something else. So 80 times 8, 640 times 3, 1,900, 1,920. That's good. That's good. And our profit on that is going to be $9. That's $17,280. That's good. That's good. That's real good. That's real good. Because, you're not just doing chickens. At least I'm not just doing chickens. I'm doing chickens. I'm doing pork. And I have a good reason, and I think a lot of you have heard me say this before, to remain diversified on the homestead. I have a very good reason for doing that. Okay, so let's say that I was raising let's see, what was that number I just came up with? 8 chicken tractors times 80 equals 640 times 3 loads is 1,920 birds. And I'm going to encourage you all to process them on the farm. What am I going to do with the heads and feet and guts from those chickens that I process? What am I going to do with those if I don't have hogs on the farm? What would I do with them? Now, is that legitimate? I mean, can you feed the heads, feet, and guts to the hogs from chickens? Is that legit? I say yes. I don't really care what anybody else says. I do it. And then I don't have a problem with those hogs eating heads and feet and guts from the chickens. I don't have a problem with it. So if my customers have a problem with it, then they wouldn't be my customers. But I think it's legit. I think it's far more wholesome than feeding them, hog chow. Hog chow actually has other hogs in it, and it's other hogs out of the hog houses, downstate where they've got 10 million hogs in these houses, and it's screaming, and they fill them up with antibiotics and all kinds of other stuff. That, to me, that's not wholesome. I just don't like that. And that's why if you feed hog chow, that's why your hogs will stink. My pigs do not stink. Not at all. You do not smell anything when you're on this farm. And sometimes we have, 100 of them, 120, but you will not smell that when you come here. So my reason for being diversified is it's really nice if your processes can fit together. They can dovetail. All right, Crunchy's with us and Andy's with us. Get in here, Zumwalt. It's really nice if your processes can dovetail, right? So what would I do with all those heads, feet, and guts? Yeah, I would compost them. It's a little bit of a challenge because you're adding fresh guts every week if you process every week. And so you've got to have some piles that are set way aside, and there's going to be smell. That's all there is to it. And you're going to be drawing vermin, and maybe even your own dogs will want to go in there and dig up, and then they'll come in the house and give you a big lick right on the cheek after they've been digging in there. I know. I've been there, right? But once they're fed to the pigs, they're gone. That day they are gone, right? Instantly. I've got 3 different locations where I have pigs, and I split the guts up accordingly, and 10 minutes after they are fed to those guys, they are gone. So there are no fly issues, there are no stink issues, anything like that. I do compost the feathers right now. I mean, that's the best that we can do with them. On occasion, we've tried putting them in with the pigs. Pigs don't like them. They just don't do anything with them. So they become a nuisance. Then they dry out and they start blowing all over the place, and it doesn't look good. So we don't do that. Those go in the compost pile, and in about a week, they're gone, right? Because they're wet going in. They're full of bacteria. They go in the compost, and then they're gone. And those feathers wind up in the compost pile. The compost pile winds up getting spread all over the farm, right? And it adds to our fertility, our overall fertility. So it's you're always thinking about, or I'm always thinking about, how do I boost the fertility of my ground? And I suppose if I lived out in Texas, I'd really be thinking about it, because the fertility there is it's just not there in a lot of places. Okay, I found 5 chicken guts and parts. Feed 1 large pig a day, no leftovers. Yep. Hey, anymore people are buying chicken feet, because of the collagen that's in them. It's getting around that it's a bit of a fountain of youth if you make chicken stock with chicken feet. So we've sold a lot of them. So keep in mind, but if they don't sell and they wind up in the freezer too long, then out they go to the chickens. All right, so our first step is going to be brooding. Well, maybe even before that, we're going to order them from the hatchery. We use a local hatchery, local to us, closer the better, and they come in the mail, right? They wind up at the post office, and I really don't want them driving around in the postman's vehicle until he gets here, and he gets here in the afternoon. So I've told those guys down there at the post office, just give me a call. I'll come get them. And we've been doing that for years. Right. So I drive down and pick them up. It's kind of a nice thing. And then I bring them home. And usually I will turn the brooder on before I leave. It'll be at a new location, a nice, new, clean location. Those of you that have been there here have seen where the brooder, sometimes it's sitting right on the grass. And when we move it, I'll take my front end loader. I just have a little 50 horsepower tractor, lower the bucket so it just skims, and I will skim that right off of there without even digging into well, sometimes I don't do it too well, but most of the time I can skim that right off, and that goes right into the compost pile. I love, maybe love's kind of a strong word. I really appreciate chicken manure, because I do a lot of composting here, and it seems like, I let the compost piles go in the wintertime because it's cold. I don't want to cover them and then pull the cover off onto the, and then just mix it up again. I just don't want to do it. I might start doing that again, but it's a bigger plan. I would like to capture some of that heat that's generated, but where I live gets real cold in the wintertime, and at night gets very cold. And to keep that going, you really have to have chicken manure to keep it going. Or you need to cover it with something that's pretty warm. And that's a bit of a challenge here because anytime you cover something, then it gets covered with snow, and it's really surprising how much snow weighs. Like if you cover firewood outside and then you try to get the snow off of it to get the firewood underneath it, it's amazing. You push it back, and so now you've got a double layer of snow, and then you try to push that again. Like 6 inches of snow is really heavy. So I don't like to do that. Maybe someday I'll work on a project that I worked on years ago where we had a lot of chicken manure because we were growing chickens in the wintertime. This is when we had our distributor, and he was like, "No, I got to have chickens 365 days a year," because he was distributing them to restaurants. And back then, pastured poultry, what's that? They didn't know. So he says, "I don't care if you grow them in your garage." Uh, the restaurants in Traverse City wanted local chicken, and they didn't care how we grew it. So, like, there's an Amish kid over here that picked it up, and he grows them in barns, and he takes them up there and claims that they're pastured. He's got a little doorway with about a 6 by 6 patch of grass that the birds can get out on. They can, but they don't, because birds, they're just going to sit by the feeder and eat, Cheetos all day. They don't care about eating their greens. But if you raise them out here in this, then you can start to grow things in your fields, your chicken fields, that the chickens will eat, namely clover. They go crazy for clover. And clover grows really well on fields that you've run over with these chicken tractors. Okay, so this chicken tractor, the way we operate these is every day we move them the length of the chicken tractor. So you're picking up the front of it. We've got a rope on the front. They're moved by hand. We don't use a machine to move them. You don't need to. These come in at less than 200 pounds, the ones that I built. I've got a special design that I think one of my chicken tractors was actually abducted, right? Because it seems like one was missing. And then it seemed like it was back. But I didn't see any tracks. But I think we all know at this point that UFOs are reality. At least I do. And it seemed to have been abducted, and aliens probably took it up and blueprinted it and brought it back down. They got to eat too, right? They got to eat too. But my chicken tractors are really like the 5th generation tractor, and they're really special. They're really nice. I really like them. And we move them once a day. And what that does is it puts the chicken's manure behind them, right? And it disperses it out over 120 square feet. And what does that do for the vegetation in that field? So if the chickens are on it for about 24 hours, they do a lot of eating. They eat a lot of grass. They eat a lot of alfalfa. They eat a lot of clover. The clover flowers, I like to eat those things. I mean, I'll eat a handful of those things. They're so good. So the chicks are getting sustenance off the field, and then the field is getting sustenance from the chickens. So there again is a good example of two processes that are dovetailing. They're mutually benefiting from each other, right? So this field that we run our chickens on, that is a component in this whole operation, right? If we were doing it on sand, well, why even move them then? What's the point? Well, I guess there would be some point to it. Chickens are not known for their intelligence, and when they're eating, clover, and then their manure is there from their buddy, well, I guess we'll eat that too. And that's not good for them. because there's such a thing as coccidiosis, and it's caused by the Coccidia protozoa that is part of the soil. And it doesn't rear its ugly head until we put the environment out there out of balance. So 120 square feet, 80 birds, that's out of balance big time. We do balance it up by moving the chicken tractor and, getting the chickens off their own manure. So we're limiting the amount of manure that they can't eat. Not that they're not going to get any, but if they were just in an environment where their manure is just building up and it was thick, they'd be eating a lot. Yeah, hey, let's do that, Andy. You're right. Let's give us all a thumbs up. That really does manipulate the algorithm, and it gets the word out to more people. So let's do that. Give us a thumbs up, will you please? Ben's with us. Right on, Ben. How you doing? There's consistencies in this world, and the consistencies are a poor mouse. Okay, so we've got our brooder, we've got our chicken tractors, we've got our procedure for operating the chicken tractors. Our chickens are going to be ready between 8 and 10 weeks, and that's where we're going to land. At 8 weeks, your broilers should be about 4.5 pounds dressed. Dressed means no clothes on. Imagine that. So no clothes on. They've been plucked and they've been gutted. 4.5 pounds. That's kind of an industry standard. When you see a 4.5 pound bird, you'll say, "Yeah, that's like what they have at the store. That's a 4.5 pound bird. Yeah, that's normal looking." A 5.5 pound bird for my family is good, and you get a nice big honking chicken leg on there. I like that. I even like a 6 pound dressed, and we've had them as high as 8 pounds. We love them. They still taste good. It's not, oh, they get tough when they're above 4.5. I don't know whoever said that, but it's not true. It's not true. They don't get tough. I've even heard that there's a guy that runs auto body shop in town, and he called and he wanted to get his chickens, and I said, "Hey, we don't have any openings for 2 weeks." And he says, "Oh man, they're big already." And I said, "Well, hold their feed. Don't feed them." He says, "No, they get tough if you don't feed them. They don't get." And I thought about that a lot, and I don't see why they would get tough. And I told him, "Well, just feed them clover then. if you got to, just feed them clover." Okay, so we've got our brooder, we've got our chicken tractors, we've got our feed. Feed's real important. So they are out on pasture, and they are going to be eating grass, clover, alfalfa, but you do have to feed them. You do have to feed them if you want them to make it 8 weeks to 8 to 10 weeks, right? Chickens they're omnivores, right? So you can feed them a meat-free diet if you want, but the protein level of the chick feed has to be pretty good. I think 16% is what we feed, 16, 18%. And we don't go with 2 different feeds. We just go with a single feed. Baby chicks get it, and the older chickens get it. I think it's 18% feed. And we feed that to the turkeys too, and they all do well on it. We have a mill locally that is run by a bunch of guys that used to be Amish, and they're kind of mad scientists, and they'll make us any feed that we want. And they've come up with a recipe that's really worked good, that has been in the Amish community for a long time, and it works really good for us. So we've stuck with it. If any of you need it, you can call the farm, and we'll give you the guys that we use. You Michigan people, these guys deliver quite a ways. They're over in Mayo, which is It's right over here. It's quite a ways, but they've got a delivery truck and they have quite a good business. They go all over the place. They used to be Amish, so they still look like Amish, but they drive. It's pretty funny. And they'll have this great big truck, and there'll be like 4 kids in there. Seat belts? What are those? Car seats? Never heard of them. I'm not kidding. And they go all over the place. It seems like nobody stops them, I guess, or they've never been stopped, because they would get a hefty ticket for that. All right. So our procedure is to move them every day. What else do we have to do? We have to make sure that they have feed in front of them at all times. So we feed twice a day. I make feeders that are 4 feet long, and they're just made out of pine boards, and there is a piece of 2x2 up here that is secured with screws on the end. And what it does is it makes it so the chicks won't sit on it. If you want to see more detailed drawings and the total ins and outs of this, you're going to want to join Tribe Plus. Tribe Plus is anyone can farm. The anyone can farm experience.com, and then go into Tribe Plus. 49 cents a day, but you get all the good stuff in there, all the secrets, right? These are 6 inches wide and 4 feet long and about 6 inches deep, right? So they'll take quite a bit of feed, and we're loading them twice a day, and they just wipe it out. As far as watering goes, there's many ways to do that. We used to have a trailer that was hooked to the Jeep, so we'd have to fire up the Jeep twice a day to fill a barrel that was in the Jeep, to haul out there, or that was in the trailer, to haul it out to the poultry field, and then transfer the water from the barrel into a bucket. So there's a valve on the barrel that you'd have to open, and it would come out about as fast as a hose. And you set a 5-gallon bucket there, and you fill that one, then you move it over, and then you fill another one, then you shut the valve off. Now you're into it probably 6 minutes, right? Just filling your buckets. And then you walk them over, and then you transfer that water into the buckets on top of the chicken tractor. And then it feeds down to a bell waterer that a lot of people still use. Bell waterers. I don't. We got out of it because we discovered a better way to do it. So it started like this. I built a waterer out of a piece of PVC pipe, 4-inch PVC pipe with caps on the ends. And then I cut it like that. And so the water level would be right here. There would be a little fitting sticking out the end here. And then there was a valve right here, sort of like a toilet bowl valve. That's exactly what it looks like. It's got a little float out here. And we would run hoses out to the field. So we just get regular garden hoses, connect them up, and run them out to the field, and they would connect on here. And we had quite a few chicken tractors. So trying to get some sort of system to split the hose down, it became tedious, and it was not working out so good because those hoses are heavy, especially when they're full of water. They're really heavy. So then this worked for about, it worked that first year with hoses, but we couldn't service all the chicken tractors that we had. Back then we had 30 chicken tractors. So we went to a different hose. I found some tubing that was clear, and it was about a 1/4 inch inside diameter. So on the outside, it was probably 5/16 clear. And I bought a spool of it, and then I adapted it up, and we adapted it up to the hoses, and voila, we had 40 of 30 of these built. I built 30 of them, and we had them hanging in the chicken tractors, and voila, we had water to all of the chicken tractors, and for the most part, it was somewhat reliable. For the most part, there were problems though. When this drinker, this was about 4 feet long. When it's full of water, it's what? It's heavy. It's heavy. And another thing was happening. The clear plastic lines were magnifying the sunlight, and they were creating algae in the lines. Yes, indeed, algae in the lines. And what happened with that algae? When it flushed through, some of it broke loose, like, when you have myocarditis, it breaks loose, and it would jam up the toilet bowl plunger. And then we'd have water that was either running over or not getting in. So reliability went down. So I searched and searched and searched, and I found a better waterer. And this water is, I've shown these before, but we got new people in here, I'm sure. These are, this is not to scale by any means. These are made by Little Giant, and they are about this big when you look at them from the bottom. And it's just a cup, sort of shaped like a bell, and it's got a little valve on it that is nothing more than an air valve, just like there'd be a stem valve in a tire on a bicycle or a car. And what happens is when that cup fills up with water, it gets a little bit heavier, and it offsets the air valve, and it shuts the water flow off. And when the chicks drink out of it and it gets a little lighter, it comes up and it fills and then offsets again. So it's constantly being filled as the chicks drink from it. 80 birds in a chicken tractor, and then this one little 6-inch diameter drinker. I thought that, I'll need to have several of them per chicken tractor. And it's very light. It only has maybe a cup of water in it. It's not very deep. And at first, I think I probably put 2 of them in a chicken tractor, and that was fine. What happens is if you have a constant supply of water there, they kind of go over and drink and then go over and eat, go over and drink, go over and eat. And there's 80 of them, and they kind of get a rhythm going. So there may be 6 of them around the drinker, all drinking at the same time, but then they go away and 6 more come. So now we only have 1 in there. And so long as it's on all the time, it's fine. So, hey, it's got to be reliable. This Little Giant drinker is extremely reliable. And you can learn all about that on Tribe Plus too, because I did quite a few videos on that system, how we built the system. It's not brain surgery. The problem was the clear plastic tubes, because we had problems with this as well. The algae would get in there and would clog it up, and either it wouldn't go or it would run over all the time. So I switched to a different type of tubing, and it was an opaque black tubing, right? And now I'm not using black anymore. Oh, no, wait a minute. I am using black. The black worked really good, right? Black is beautiful. But then I couldn't get the black anymore. I wound up finding it at Home Depot. That's where I got the black. And when I first started buying it, it was $4 per 50 feet of this black plastic tubing, right? And then, what was it? maybe it was per 100 feet. Yeah, I think it was per 100 feet. And then it went up to $4 per 50 feet. And then they discontinued it. So then I did some searching around on the computer and I found Dripco or Drip Depot or Drip Works or, they changed their name a lot. It's all Chinese stuff. It's drip irrigation line is what it is, and they call it capillary tubing, I think. Or one time I heard it called capillary tubing. I haven't seen that term in a long time. This stuff all gets jumbled around. But the last time we got it, I bought 1,000-foot roll. Because let me tell you, when you start using that stuff for water distribution around the farm, you will use it everywhere. So why would you use a garden hose, like a 100-foot garden hose right now? It's going to be $80, if not more. And then some idiot will drive over it with a lawnmower, and then you've got nothing, or it's across the driveway and people will drive over the hose and they destroy it. So you can use this drip irrigation line the same way you would use a garden hose, but you only get a tiny stream out of it. But that's okay, because let's say you've got you're watering pigs with it. It's hot here in the summertime, so we have to do a wallow for the pigs. So I can just let this run, and the stream coming out of it is smaller than a pencil. It's way smaller than a pencil. It's about the size of the tip of a pencil. It's a small stream, and I can just let it run, not real hard, just as a dribble, and run it right into the corner of a pen, and it'll make a nice wallow that once it's full, I can just let it sit there and run, and you'll actually have clear water on top, and the pigs will drink out of it. People have said to me, oh, they need cleaner water than that. Oh yeah, you provide them with clean water and they go and they drink out of a mud puddle. That's just the way pigs are. This is warm water. It's tasty over here. This muddy stuff that so-and-so just peed in. That's how pigs are. But with these drinkers, now you have very little weight hanging in here, and it's attached to the chicken tractor. And the lines that feed it are very light, even when they're full. You can move the chicken tractor, and these lines will just drag behind it. And for more information, go to Tribe Plus, and you can see how I manifolded them in. Really simple. Because at drip irrigation, Dripco, Drip Depot, whichever one you decide to use, you can get T's and then straight fittings so you can connect them up. You'll want to look at the website to see how I did that. Oh, OG Benavides, Ravenna, near Lake Michigan. White Dog's with us. We average 6 pounds. We get a few 9-pounders. The people who say they're tough are the ones who eat them day of harvest. Yeah, right on. That's true. Yep. Too far. Too far for what? To walk? Need black lines, no algae. Yeah. Right on. Yeah. And now we use nothing but black lines. I mean, I can distribute water all over this farm. I'm not kidding. You can water cows with those lines, so long as you have a big enough accumulation. Cows don't drink at night. And so you have a 1/4-inch line running in there and into a 275-gallon trough, which is what I have. I have several of them. And it's running all night. It'll be full in the morning. Each one of them is going to drink about 10 gallons, but they're not going to drink it all at the same time, right? So it really works well. And if you don't have the means of putting a valve in to shut it off, which is available, then you can just let it run. And if it overflows a little bit, no big deal. The water's just going back to the earth. Not a big deal. All right. So that's our watering system. And I know I'm just kind of going over it quick, but bringing the water out to the field isn't as hard as you think. As a matter of fact, when we have our chicken tractors all set up and running full of birds, the water system is there. It's hooked up. They all have water all the time. Um, I run kind of a checklist at night, and it's not formal at all. I have a small motorcycle that I can economize, plus it's fun. And it's not a street bike or anything. It's just a little dirt bike with a headlight on it, enduro, they used to call them. Now they call them dual sport motorcycle. But it's an old motorcycle that I can jump on, fire it up. Even if it's a little dark out, I can still go out and I can make the rounds real quick. It's enjoyable. Wind in my hair, and probably listening to tunes as I'm doing it. I can drive by the chicken tractors from 20 feet away and I can see water, 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 water. Okay. So if I see water in there, we're good. If I don't see water in there, I'm going to go in for a closer look. And maybe I am not seeing it correctly because, of course, those get looked at in the afternoon by the person doing afternoon chores. And if there's no water there, somebody's got a problem, But it happens, and I have tools on me. I carry a Leatherman on me, and there's one other little tool that I need to be able to unscrew the valve and free it up if something is clogged in it. But it doesn't happen anymore, not like it used to. So I have it in my pocket all the time, but I hardly ever pull it out. Usually what will happen is with this waterer, the chickens are at it so much they're jolting it around. It's getting worked on all day long, and that valve will actually loosen up. So a couple times a season, I'll have a waterer that's overflowing. Not a big deal. It's only overflowing with just a 1/4 inch line, so it's not like we're flooding out the chicken tractor. Whereas if that was a hose, a regular 5/8 hose that popped off, not only am I going to flood the place out, I'm going to, run a bunch of water that I don't want to run, Whereas if I have a malfunction with a 1/4 inch line, not such a big deal. And usually I know if I have an open line someplace because, I don't have really good hearing, according to the Air Force, but I can actually hear the pump that's down 60 feet when I'm 100 feet away from it. I can actually hear it, right? And it's just my kids don't hear it, and I don't hear a lot of other things. I can hardly ever hear my wife, but I can hear that pump running. And if it's running too much, I'll sense it, and I'll be like, something's not right. That's running too much. It should be shutting down. And I will find it. And things happen. Lines pop off in really hot weather sometimes. We have these 1/4 inch lines all over the place, but we also have 3/4 inch main lines that provide us with, well, I guess I'll kind of explain it like this, because here I am telling you don't use hoses, but then I'm using 3/4 inch PVC lines. But let's say that this is the farm, and I have pigs over here, and then way out on the back 40, I have cows. Well, and then I have my poultry field is over here. If I had my well here and I was running just a 1/4 inch line to here, to here, and to here, I would get just a dribble out of it. And that would not be enough. Not be enough. When you've got, 10 chicken tractors going with 80 birds in it a piece, that's 800 birds. They're going through a lot of water. If you've got 20 cows, they go through 10 gallons a piece a day. So do the math on that. That's a lot of gallonage, you know. So what we have to do is from the well, we'll have 3/4 inch lines to somewhere in the vicinity. And then you could run a bunch of 1/4 inch lines to your whatever it is, pigs. Same thing here, 3/4 inch line out here, and then you can do a bunch of 1/4 inch lines. Same thing here. And this same well is feeding the house. So it's putting out a lot of water. We go through a lot of water in the summertime. This well is really important to this farm. Redundancy. I have redundancy. I don't have another well like this. Also, another thing that we're feeding is the campground over here. Let's say we've got 5 campers over there. You know, they're the ones that will leave water running. And when I know I have people over there, that's when I'm listening for the well, usually. Because, you know, they got kids and stuff, and the kids will be playing with the thing and leave it on, you know, and leave it on overnight. So we go through a lot of water with that well. Redundancy to that well? No, I don't have redundancy to that well. I will, because over at the campground, one of these days, we're going to put another well in over there that will feed the campground, but we can also link up to the main farm as well. So you'll have two separate wells. If one fails, you got the other one, because water is so important to a farm like this in the summertime. It's so important. As a backup, we have a pond, and there's water in there all summer long. It's on a spring, and it's always full of nice, fairly cold water. If I had to, I could roll down there with a tractor, with the Jeep. If nothing else, I could be walking down there with pails, with buckets, white 1-gallon buckets, or 5-gallon buckets. Sound like Joe Biden. And haul them up by hand, or the kids, probably the kids will do it. Or we can take the cows down there and they can drink, which we have one well, one pond, and on the back of the property, there's 2 other ones that stay open most of the time. I mean, stay full most of the time. One of them all of the time. The other one, it does get down in the summertime. It gets kind of low. I've been thinking about filling that one in and running a line over to the big pond. It's big, and it's always full. So that's kind of why I'm not in a big yank to put another well down, is because I have that redundancy. In the wintertime, the pigs, I've told you this before, I get a lot of pushback on this. The pigs eat snow, and we have snow a lot. I still got snow on the ground now, and the pigs are still eating snow. When the snow goes away, usually have big puddles out there, and so they still have water. There will be a brief time where the seasonal water, like these 3/4-inch lines, I can't turn them on now, because if there's pressure in that line during the night, and it goes down to 20, those lines can push off of their fittings, and then you have a leak. So I usually wait until it's warm during the day, like in the 50s, and then at night it's going down to like 30 or so. But when that happens, I will shut this off. All right, and it's a little bit of a hard to, well, no, I won't go into that, the whole frost-free thing at this point. But I can shut these seasonal lines off, so there's no water pressure to them. There might be water in them, but there's no pressure there. So if they freeze, nothing will happen. Nothing at all will happen. As long as there's an open line someplace, we'll be okay. All right, so that's my water system. I can't overstate water. You know, this system was built over time, and there was a lot of trial and error. But the system that I have now for the chickens and the chicken tractors is State of the Union is good. It's solid. It's solid. I would depend on it. But I still check it. I still check it. You don't not check it, right? Just like the brooder, I will check that before I go. I'm in for the night. Now, you might think I'm in, but I'm not really. I still have to go out and do stuff, check some stuff. I also have to check to make sure the doors are shut at the butcher shop because it's going to get cold tonight. I don't want pipes in there to freeze. That happens. Sometimes people will prop a door open when they're carrying buckets of milk through or something, and then they'll forget. They'll leave it open. I may have done it myself, and I'll go in there in the morning and, oh, the pipes are froze. Now what? You know? So, all right. So then the next component that you need in pastured poultry, and I want to get to the bird flu. The next component that you need is you need a way to get those birds processed, and then you have to be able to market them. Okay, so for 2023, if you guys were starting out, don't do what I did. I raised a bunch of birds, and then I said, who wants birds? What you want to do is for your first year, if this is your first year, build a chicken tractor or two, right? Brood your birds inside the house on a pad maybe. I don't like heat lamps, especially in barns. Now, I've got open flame here in this. There's open flame, but it's a freestanding building. It's a tiny little building that I move around. I don't park it next to the barn. So if something happens and it catches fire and it burns, I mean, it's reality. That happens. My barn's not going to go up. If your barn goes up, I have a friend that did it. He did it with a heat lamp. And I said something to him. I said, don't use heat lamps in your barn. Are you out of your mind? I mean, it's over nice dry straw and this lamp or bulb, if it breaks and then all the filament and everything drops down on this nice dry straw, what do you think's going to happen? And he burnt his barn down. And then I went down there for something else to get some baby pigs. Had it going again. It won't happen this time. I took precautions this time. No, you didn't. No. Heat lamps, no good. No good. Don't use them unless you're in some small building that's separated from everything. But even then, I would say they make pads now that you can plug in, and they're a solid pad. They have a very good safety rating. I don't know how you'd make a flame with those things. I really don't know how you'd do it because they don't get that hot, and they have safety circuits on them where there's a short, they're just going to kick offline, right? So that's that. Let's see, where were we? Yeah, so you raise some chickens this year. Let's say it's going to be your first year. The best way to market anything is if you have a next door neighbor and you like them, take over a chicken. Here, try one of these, see what you think. They're really good, so especially if, like, some people don't know how to cook a chicken, believe it or not. Parker's wife, Lauren, was like 20 years old before she had chicken with a bone on it or chicken off the bone. The only chicken she'd ever had, like chicken tenders, So a lot of people don't know how to do it. But once you have it, you want more. It's really good stuff, especially the pastured stuff. If it's not pastured, it's kind of lacking the firmness of the meat and just the good rich flavor, of pastured poultry, because they're eating all that goodness from the sun, the clover, all that stuff that really changes the flavor profile. Not to mention the building blocks that are in it for your body, your regenerative body, and those of your family, your kids especially. Do not feed them the stuff from the store. Are you crazy? Buy them pizza then. So then when you get your customer base together, like you start a database, when you give somebody a chicken and they say, I'd like to have like 5 more. Could I get those? Yeah, I've got about that money. I can sell them to you. Get your pricing down. About $4.50 a pound is fair. You can go as high as $5.50 depending on where you live and what your costs are going to be. But you should make about $9 per unit. $9, right? I would like 10. I'd be okay with 8. 9 is good. 9 is good. The more efficient that you are, the higher your profit's going to be. So if you have a bunch of birds die, that comes off your bottom line. So work your systems and use tried and true systems to start with, and then improve on them. Maybe you guys will be telling me that, hey, you can improve this if you do this. I'd be on it like flies on a rib roast if somebody comes up with a better way to do it. These chicken tractors, I used to build them with sheet steel, and I would screw that on right to the floor, right to the ground level. And on really hot days, then I'd have to go up there and prop this thing up and put something under there so the wind could get under it. Well, I quit doing that. Now I just use a tarp, and I only come down halfway. So this is open all the way around. There's chicken wire in the way, so it contains them, but it's open all the way around. So I don't worry about extreme heat. Heat is your enemy with pastured poultry. If you ever get to a place, like probably down in Alabama, you get some super hot days down there. If you ever get to the place where all of a sudden you look at your chickens and they're panting really hard, and then they're laying down and their necks are straight out on the ground, and it looks really weird, you're about to have problems. And what you can do is get out in front of the chicken tractor, like quite a ways out. I'd say 15, 20 feet, with a pressure washer, whatever you can get your hands on, and just start fogging them. You just fog them. Don't be like 5 feet from them and peeling their feathers off. Like 15, 10, 50, depending on how powerful the pressure washer is. I have one that's a 10 horsepower, and it really puts the water out, and I can be back like 15 feet, and just it creates like billowing fog that goes over them, and it just has this cooling effect. If you went out there with a hose and you started hosing them, it'd be better than nothing, but I would not want the birds to be wet, because then the sun goes down, it cools off. In the morning, you got dead birds, because chickens kind of operate off of a differential pressure, right? So you can have birds out and it will be freezing at night and they're fine. I mean, it'd be 20 degrees and they're fine. But if they're wet, not so. They'll get cold, and when they get cold, they pile, and you wind up with a big mess in a hurry. And I found out the hard way too many times. I've told you guys probably the worst one that I can think of. I had 2 of them, and they were bad. And when we were running 30 chicken tractors, one day some friends of ours showed up here, and they're from out of state. They came from Montana, actually. And they showed up. Wow, we were great to see them. We weren't really expecting them. And, we kind of lost sight of the farm. It was like, oh, our friends are here. And so it was really, really hot out. Hey, let's go to the lake and go swimming. We'll take a picnic lunch. We'll have a good time. And their kids and our kids, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. We'll have a good time. So we did that. Kind of didn't look in on the chickens. Got home that night. We were going to pick chickens up that night for processing the next day. Had 250 of them on the schedule to be picked up. Went out there. I'm walking out. It's dark. I'm walking out because we always pick them up at night and put them in crates and then haul them up to the butcher shop. so you don't stress them out. There's no movement in there. There's no movement at all. What the heck? I go and I pick up one, dead. It's like stiff dead. Another one, dead. We lost over 200 birds. I don't remember exactly what the count was, but it was horrific, right? And these were, live birds. They're going to be 6.25. That's a lot of weight. 200 of them. It's a lot of weight. And we were just putting them in the front end loader of the tractor. And I thought, well, maybe I can claim these on insurance or something. I don't know. I just didn't know what to do. Hadn't had that problem before. But what happened was the waterers was the old watering system. It was this, and they clogged. And the guy that was taking care of them, he said, "Oh yeah, they were clogged yesterday too." And he was young. It's one of my kids, and I wish you'd said something to me. But in reality, that's my fault. That's why I check them every single night. So I know that they're getting water, because that's what will kill your chickens if they don't have water, right? They cannot go 24 hours without water. And then when you get water going to them, then they freak out. So when I go by and I see that there's water in this water at night, in the evening, I know that they've had water that day. I can be relatively sure that they've had it. If they're mobbing that, then I know there's been a problem. And if they're mobbing it, like all 80 of them are trying to get to it, that's because they are thirsty. And that's a problem. So that means there's not enough water flow to that thing. And I've got to figure out what the problem is. And I've had to sit in there on occasion in the evening and push them all away from the water and only let like 5 of them drink at a time. Because if they mob it, then they're spilling it, the thing never fills, and nobody gets any water, and they all get wet. And even on a warm summer night, you can have dead birds in the morning if they're wet. So, this whole process, it's not foolproof. It does take your interaction. Again, Tribe Plus would be the way to go. Sign up, watch the videos, and all the information that's there. I'm only giving you the treetop level here. Then processing. I don't think I'll go into it because we're over time right now. And I do want to go into, 9:25. Holy. I want to go into the bird flu. The bird flu. I had a phone call the other day, and it was some reporter from some news agency down here, right? Down by the Capitol, down in Lansing. And I don't recall what the news agency, but I've heard them before, and I've interviewed with them before. And they said, "Hey, if you've got 5 or 10 minutes, we'd like to do an interview with you about bird flu." And I thought, I want to see what this is about. And I said, yeah, what do you want to know? And he said, okay, well, I'll call you right back because I got to get this recorded, right? So then I get to think for a couple minutes. We were butchering pigs at the time, and I just thought, okay, well, I can do 2 things at once. I can multitask. So I get to thinking, and I'm thinking, are they calling me because they want to know my point of view on it? Or are they just randomly calling whoever was in the phone book under chickens, I guess. I don't know. And so I asked the guy, I said, how come you calling me? And he said, well, we did a Google search and you're a chicken producer. Okay. I didn't know that. Maybe I better check that out. And then he had his questions. And you know how when somebody asks you questions, you can kind of tell what they're getting at? Like they wanted me to say that I'm being ravaged by the bird flu. And then what steps, you want to know, what steps are you taking to ensure that it doesn't spread to the wild bird population? And, so if he writes this up and I say, oh, well, I make sure that I keep them all in a building that's hermetically sealed so no birds can get in, then I'm kind of validating what he's saying, that wild birds can get the bird flu, right? And trust the science here, and that's a problem, because I remember back in 2004 when I first got out of the service and we first started doing pastured poultry. We heard on the news, outbreak of the bird flu, and we're going to have to do something to make sure that domesticated birds don't rub beaks with wild birds. Like how cows rub noses with wild deer. You know how that happens, and all of a sudden you have these terrible diseases that come out of nowhere, right? And then they say, well, in that case, we can't have cows out on the field, or you're going to have to fence the deer out of your cow field. They come up with these stupid things. And who is this? The Department of Agriculture, of course. So anyway, this guy is asking me these questions, and he's leading me. And I thought, well, the best thing to do here is just speak my mind. It'll never make it through editing and or edit, his editors. It'll never make it through that, because this guy, I said to him, hey, if you want a really good story, find out what happens to the flocks that are condemned because they test positive for bird flu. Find out what happens to them. Well, I can tell you what happens to them. In confinement, these birds are alive for 56 days. That's it. And on day 57, they are processed. And they will empty a barn with 15,000 birds like in one evening. They'll just have a whole bunch of migratory workers going in there, and they're loading up crates. They're putting them on semis, and they're running them, down to Indiana to process them. And they're being processed by the same group of people that are rounding them up. Well, what happens is the owners of these big hog houses, they don't own the birds that are in them. I don't know if you know that. They're just contract growers. They don't own the buildings either. They're making payments on the buildings. I know, because I almost went down this road. So they have a facility that they're paying off. So they don't really own it. It's just on their land. And one of these growing organizations wants to put birds in it. And so they have a contract. And in 56 days, the guy that owns the buildings or owns the property that the buildings run, he's paid per piece live chickens that go out. Unless something goes wrong, like the fans go off and all the birds die, then the insurance company pays, right? So in the case of the bird flu, who benefits from saying, yeah, come on in and check them, and then they come up with positive. Yeah, they're alive, they're doing fine, just like, you remember the Wu flu? Like, you could be no symptoms at all, but you got it, so you got to stay home from work now. They called it asymptomatic. Like, I have an asymptomatic cold right now, or asymptomatic. It's just, the world's crazy. You can be an asymptomatic genius. Yeah, I don't display the characteristics of genius, but I actually am one. It's just, the world's crazy. You can be Bruce Jenner, put a dress on, and then your name's Caitlin. And friggin' people will take you seriously, because if they don't, they'll be canceled. Like, do it. Cancel me. I'm tired of this make-believe game. But anyway, it goes over into just about everything. So the guys that have the flocks that are testing positive for bird flu, well, what do you know? It's 2 days before they're going to slaughter. Well, we'll just take them to slaughter. Problem solved, right? Yeah. And you get this data that 15,000 birds had to be slaughtered because they had the bird flu. They were going to slaughter them anyway. Yeah, that's going on. That would be a real great story, wouldn't it? But mainstream media would never run with a story like that because this works in somebody's favor. Who? Whose favor does it work in? That's what you have to ask. Who benefits from this, right? Somebody always benefits when there's a tragedy that happens, right? So you can connect the dots on that yourself. I don't need to do that. But almost every time, well, when it's these made up things, um, there is a benefactor in that whole thing. And when you have a benefactor, they're benefiting at the expense of someone else. Okay, so if everybody that's hearing me tonight says, you know what, he's right, I'm going to get into pastured poultry, I'm going to make a go of it. I'm going to actually build 12 chicken tractors. I'm going to reload them 5 times. I'm down in Alabama. I can do that. Well, the chicken industry is huge, right? And a lot of the people that work for the chicken industry, they have summer homes. And every time that you shave one chicken off of that, their summer home is kind of flickering a little bit. Let's say you shave 12 off. Let's say you shave 12,000 off, right? It starts to flicker, like I might have to give up my summer home and my second, whatever, Tesla or whatever they're driving, So you, as the pastured poultry producer, you're knocking down $9 or $10 on every chicken that you produce. That's real money. Real money that buys real clothes for your kids. Real money that, puts gasoline in your car. Real money that helps you to have a better standard of living. Somebody don't want you to do that. Somebody doesn't want you to do that. Somebody is getting these stories going about bird flu, and hopefully we'll have a certain percentage of people that would normally grow chickens in the summertime. They'll say, I don't know. I don't want them coming and killing all my chickens. I'll just not do it this year. Somebody will benefit if you don't do it. Not you, though. Not you. See, that's how it works. A guy was telling me today, he was out in Washington, and the way the story goes, I don't know how long ago this was. I don't know how long we've been having to do this, but a guy at a Jack in the Box restaurant went to the bathroom, did number 2, and didn't wash his hands thoroughly, and it got in the hamburger. And they had people all across the city that got sick from that one guy that didn't wash his hands properly after he went number 2. The only problem is, how would people from across the city get, they're not mixing hamburger with their hands. Those hamburgers come in their frozen patties, and then you take them out and you throw them on the grill, right? That's how they do it. So their hands are not in the hamburger. Maybe they touch a frozen burger. But anyway, from then on, it became some, across the country fatwa that workers have to wear latex gloves. Well, do you know how many latex gloves you go through in a shift when you're working, and then you have to peel them off so you can go and run the cash register? You can't run the cash register with latex gloves. So who benefits from that? The restaurant? No, they got to buy the latex gloves. Who's actually benefit? Who's actually paying for those gloves? The customer. The customer, right? Who's benefiting? The guys that make the latex gloves. I mean, I never put a latex glove on until, I don't know, 2006. We didn't have them here in the butcher shop. You're handling chickens and But then we got some little directive that if you're handling something that's going to go in somebody's mouth, that you have to have gloves on. Somebody benefited from that. Did we cause a problem? No, they caused the problem. And then they say, invest in latex gloves. And you think that don't happen? You should know better at this point. And you should know better. You should know better. Okay, so the the bird flu, they've been trying to get this going for a long time. And you just have to look at when they start to get an operation going via, these independent stories that, I can interview somebody and I can ask them questions in a certain way and then write down whatever you want. He'll never see it. And then if you do, let's say the story comes out in some rag down in Lansing, it's like, I didn't say that. Retract it. They'll say, sue us. You won't. I wouldn't, it doesn't make sense to do interviews with those rags anyway, because they don't have to quote you correctly. What are you going to do about it? You feel like, oh, they want to talk to me. Yeah. I went down that road during the feral swine thing where they would call and they'd say, oh, yeah, we'd like to do an interview about this. This is a tragic thing. We'd like to hear your side of the story. Sure. Yeah, you'd like to hear it, but then you're going to write down whatever you want. Those were the guys that said, so do you ever do you defend your farm with firearms? And I naively thought, well, I shot a skunk last year, so yeah, I guess I do. No, and then they get to write in their little rag that prone to gun talk is what they said about me. So then when people read that, it's like, oh, this guy's a gun guy. I bet you he voted for Donald Trump and hates abortion too, right? So they classify you, and so a whole bunch of people will say, yeah, well, I don't care about him because he probably voted for Donald Trump and all that. So I don't like him, and that's the MO, and they're going to do that with the bird flu. Maybe, unless enough of us understand how to deal with those things. When they float a story about bird flu, you should hear that and say, time to raise chickens. When they float a story about there's no eggs at the store, is that true? Is that true? Or you're just not seeing what's normally there? Is anybody going without eggs? Consco, I am a gun guy and I like to eat. Yeah. No steel, just tarps. Yes, Emily. No steel. I don't use any steel on it except the steel conduit for the sides. And if you get Tribe Plus, you can have that that design. There's an ebook in there that we show you how to build them. Under 200 pounds, under $200. And they have Baker's Green Acres seal of approval. They are certified. They are certified and authorized by me. Okay, so that's coming. They're going to try it again this season, and I don't know. Use your head. To me, it just seems like if you were ever going to put on extra chicken tractors, now's the time to do it, because they're laying the groundwork to be able to say, oh, there's no chicken at the store. You were going to have a chicken barbecue at 4th of July, but now you're not going to. Well, we do business off of the farm, right? We sell our wares off of the farm. There was a time before the Wu flu when people were like, it's kind of too far, like Cadillac is 20 minutes away. It's kind of too far. I'll just go to Aldi. Yeah, I'm not a Walmart guy. I'm not going to eat their garbage food. I'll get Aldi's food. It's got to be better. With a name like Aldi's, it must be better than Walmart. Oh, right. It's the same stuff. Just same stuff. But people did realize that the place where they're going to get us, the choke point they're going to get us is with food. And it seems like they're laying the groundwork for it. So what do? Like, it's an ambush. They're getting ready to spring on you. You got to infiltrate the ambush. You got to run directly at it and start firing like a madman, right? And you're not going to, what I mean by firing is doing what they're going to you. You start producing a lot of chickens because there's going to be a market for it. See, what they do is they create a tragedy that creates a bolster in the market, and then they capitalize on it. You think people, I think they said there was 40 new billionaires created during the Wu flu, because that was a major operation. You remember the stickers that they put down on the floors? They seem to like come overnight. It's like we get this pandemic that comes from China, and then the next day there's these stickers on the floor telling you to go one way, the same direction in the store. And they were in every store. How did that happen? Logistically, how did they do that? And they're pretty nice stickers. Some of them are still on the floors. You look at them, they're pretty nice stickers. They're made for, industrial. I bet you one of the billionaires that was made during the Wu flu made those stickers. He knew it was coming. I think I'll invest in a sticker company. There's got to be like a U.S. government specification for this sticker. Yeah, that's what's going on, and it's happening by the numbers now. So all you have to do is watch the news, and you're just looking for signals is what you're looking for. Don't believe the stuff on there, except maybe the weather. And even then, they're playing you, right? Around here, like, this is a farming community. Every person drives a four-wheel drive truck. You got to have a four-wheel. You just ain't even a cowboy if you don't have a four-wheel drive truck, right? And you can't even listen to country music without a four-wheel drive truck. You got to call it a truck. It's got to be four-wheel drive too, because you got to have four-wheel drive just in case you want to go hunting. So stupid. But there will be a storm coming in, and they'll start talking about it 4 days ahead of time. And then the night before, they'll call off school. Call it off. Yeah, we don't want to risk those kids, those wonderful children. We don't want to risk them out on the road in this terrible storm that's coming. And then you get up in the morning, hey, there's no school today. How come? Like, we're homeschoolers, so we don't really. But like, maybe one of the kids' girlfriends will come over. Like, Keith's girlfriend would come over. Hey, what are you doing here? How come you don't have school? Oh, they called school off. Why? Because of the storm. So you think somebody doesn't benefit from that when school is called off? I mean, I don't know who, but somebody does. And they have a reason, and then they call it off. They don't wait until there's 10 inches of snow on the ground and then call it off. They call it off the day ahead of time. I don't know. They play with everything. The toilet paper scare. I mean, that was the primo, the toilet paper. I know there was a couple of rich guys, and they were like, hey, I'll bet you $100 we can turn this country upside down, and they'll freak out because they don't have something to wipe their butts with, because they're so dumb that they think the only thing you can wipe your butt with is toilet paper. They'll never think that you could use a napkin. I'm quite sure, because that was so stupid, but they just played on the emotions of the American public. And hopefully that was part of the game. Was we're learning that when they start opening their mouths, usually it's the news people that just repeat what they're told to tell us. Not that they're in on it, they're just lackeys, but they're tipping us as to what's going on. They really are tipping us off. Sometimes they have stories that are just covering up other things. I think, you guys, personally, I think that there's some validity to the economic challenge that's coming. whether it is reality or created, I believe there is going to be a devaluation of our currency. I believe that. It seems pretty good like that's going to happen. And the usual gun control. You know, some tranny goes into a school and shoots the place up, and it's like, oh, that's George Bush's fault or Donald Trump. If he just wasn't so hard on trannies, this guy wouldn't have done that. Okay, they don't want to know what kind of drugs the guy's on or anything like that. And it was a guy that became a girl, and the media is saying, yeah, but it doesn't have nothing to do with that. No. What does it have to do with then? He's reading Mad Magazine and he takes a gun into a school and shoots the place up, kills other human beings. Kidding me? So anyway, that's my presentation for the night. If they're saying that maybe you shouldn't do chickens this summer, wait till next year, until the bird flu, till we get a handle on it. If you're dumb enough to fall for that, I have some land to sell you down in the swamp. No, I think you should disregard mostly everything that they say. Listen to it, but kind of figure out what they're really telling you. Okay, that's it. Is there anything else that I need to tell you? Yes. June 11th will be the Pastured Poultry class, and you've got to get on the website and you've got to sign up for that. Now, we go into a lot of detail on that class, a whole lot of detail, way more than I did here. But there is far more yuppies. I don't know what they call them now, but they're 30-something-year-old people that had other career fields, and they're finding that a homesteading facet on their life would be a smart thing to do. And I firmly agree. I firmly agree with that. I think that if you get into it and you get good at it, you might even be able to let your day job go and focus on homesteading 100% of the time. You've heard me talk about spells and incantations. An incantation is like when they say something over and over and over again, over and over. Safe and effective. Trust the science. Over and over and over. There ain't no money in farming. Oh, the 30-30 is a good brush gun. When you think about it, when you hear something that people, say, and you're in a different crowd of people, and then you hear it again, start listening to that. I just threw in the 30-30 as a good brush gun because when I was in high school and I took hunter safety, the guy that gave the class said, he's showing a 30-30 rifle, lever action, like a Winchester. And he says, well, this is a high-powered rifle. It's not the highest-powered rifle, but it's a very good brush gun. It's the first time I heard that. And then I saw an article in Guns and Ammo magazine. It's a big Guns and Ammo magazine reader back then. And it was 30-30, good brush gun. I challenge you to do a Google search on the 30-30 Winchester, and you will see in there, excellent brush gun. What does that mean? What does that mean? It's short enough that when you swing around, you're not going to hit brush, or that the 30-30 cartridge is going to break through brush. Oh, well, like better than the 30-06? Oh, well, the 30-06 is moving real fast. It could get deflected. You don't know much about ballistics if you say something stupid like that. That's a really dumb thing to say. But I have heard people say that. And then all through my life, I've heard people say, you can even bait people into it. Some guy that's a good gun guy. I could have done this to Consco. I could have said, hey, what do you think of the 30-30 Winchester? They'd say, well, it's a good brush gun. Oh, where did you hear that? There's another one that I used to hear a lot. We was having some issues with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, and people would say they have more authority than the state police. And the first time I heard that, I thought, you need more authority than state police. Why would they have more authority than state police? Like on private property? And, then over and over, I would hear that. And then I finally, hold it. Like, does that mean they don't have to abide by the U.S. Constitution? They can tell you to shut your mouth and you have to? Because state police can't do that. I have the right to free speech. Unless they got me cuffed and have a sap over my head, I'll say what I want, right? What, can they tell me that I can't own and bear arms? Can they come on my property without a warrant and without any more so than a state policeman can? Well, I mean, if they believe that you're committing a crime or you're about to commit a crime, yeah, law enforcement officers can do that. But they're taking a risk, because if you charge them with trespass and then their rendition of why they came on is weak, you may get a judgment against them. And they know that. And they're going to lose standing with their bosses. If you catch them going through your wife's underwear drawer and they say, well, I was looking for a perch, that's not going to work out so good, right? And so, they don't have more authority than state police, but it's something that people will say all the time. They'll always say it. Anywho, Keith S. says he has a 30-30 and love it. But do you think it's a good brush gun there, Keith, though? I want to know. You heard it in Greenbow? Yep. Oh, good brush gun. Yep. See, you hear them all the time. And there ain't no money in farming. There ain't no money in farming. That's so stupid. It's like if you wanted to get into the Walmarting business, there ain't no money in Walmart. There ain't no money in Walmart. There ain't no money in selling food. How stupid. How stupid is that? Oh, what is there money in? Roofing barns. Yeah, there's money in roofing barns. All right. Well, good show tonight. I appreciate everybody coming by. I love everybody talking to me, and I really look forward to the Tuesday night show. There will not be a consulting meeting tomorrow night. We had one last week. You guys that are in Tribe Plus, come to the Zoom meeting. I mean, you're paying for it. Why not come and just get in on it? And, we have a lot of fun. The Zoom meeting's different in that all of your photos are there, your pictures are there, and you're talking real time to the other members. And it's just a lot of fun. Okay. I think I've covered everything. I'm going to go have me a hobby steak. Appreciate everybody coming by. Remember, anyone can farm. Now is the time to put the pedal to the metal and keep us all informed. Oh, by the way, I've seen some really neat pictures being posted on friends of mine that are Facebook friends. Yeah, I'm on Facebook. But good things that you're doing on your homestead, post it on the Anyone Can Farm tribe, because it inspires other people. And we have a lot of people in the tribe. I hope you heard the show last week when we talked about the power of the tribe when it comes to the chips being down. That was a really good show we have with Emily on. Emily Rosa is right here. Emily comes and gets milk from us, by the way. She comes from a long ways away. Well, she's on here someplace. All right, I'm going to get going. Remember, anyone can farm.